Okay, so we've talked about the uh, the application and where it's at right now. What I want to do is I want to talk briefly about the spreadsheet. I had gotten this spreadsheet from the customer, and I know it's complicated, so bear with me. I will break it down, and I will provide you the APIs for every step. So you'll have an API to fetch the data for the list. If you see a list that's this big and there's not enough room for where you can actually make it look good in the application, then we'll need to scale down some of the columns, and then I'll need to let the customer know about that. These comments are just comments. They're going to be there for me to help guide you and things like that. But I got literally no explanation. I mean, I sat with the customer and he had some issues with his business or whatever, and he just had to not be able to spend as much time with me as he wanted to. So we're going to build this. I'm going to give a demo on the end of the month of March, and then we're going to come back and make some changes. So when I ask you to make changes, I completely understand that they were not part of the original process, and then I will ask you for a new bid. Okay? Not a problem. So um, I don't know if I mentioned it in the last video, but this program is going to take us at least 6 months to complete. Okay, and depending on how well this guy can fund this process. Okay, so the initial money he's already given me, and then I'm going to give it to you based on your bids and stuff. But um, but this process is a long process. Once we do the airway bill, we've got the shipper, we've got the courier, we've got the trucking, and we've got the warehouse. We've got plenty of work to do. Okay. He knows it's gonna. I told him it's gonna take a year to build the program, but that was with me just doing it by myself. Okay. Um, so what you see here is this is called the air module. Each one of them, for example, this one's called air quotation. Okay. And this one's airway bill list. Okay. Sorry for having to scroll so much, but each one of these are going to be in the tab. So when I have to log in here, of course, and under the airway freight, the air freight, we're going to have a menu for each one of these. Okay, so one of them was called air consolidation, and um, the other ones are going to be back to the spreadsheet. Okay, the other one's going to be air module. Okay, and then there are 8 sheets in this group here, as you can see. It's got 8, including a loading, which includes a loading guide. But I said, I'm going to give you the API for this, and then you're going to have regular fields that are going to be here. And then I would not put them all caps. What I would do is, just going to get back to the screen here, is under the forms, we're going to utilize this form. So you're going to put the titles there. And I think I mentioned that in the last video. Okay, so these buttons here are going to be just the kind of a generic type button. I wanted to show you. It's going to be something like this. Okay, we're going to put the text in there, and we're going to have to come back once we understand a little bit more about the program. But when we see the page and it says add to existing consolidation, I don't know what that means. You won't, right? But we'll just put a little like a little pop-up, like a little screen pop-up. It says to be programmed, or going to page 6, or whatever. And I'm going to get more information out of them. But by the application being over here on the left, I'm going to be able to show him every single page, and that's going to be important. Okay. Okay, good. So we need to go back to the spreadsheet, and this red text here is just me trying to tell you what we want in there, like a priority. Well, the priority is going to be a certain priority. It might be priority 1, 2, whatever. but that's all going to be driven by the database, the data that's in the database. So I'll give you an API to call to get the data to put into that list. And so all you got to do is just provide it to a list. There won't be a need for you to put in any user GUID for some of these things because it's going to be a list provided for that purpose, okay? But when we're doing the grids, these grids are going to be specific to the user using the application, okay? Um, and we'll get more about that when the time comes, okay? So realize when you do your bids, it's not that I'm going to hold you to it that you've got to complete the page and then make 1,000 edits to the page. It's you've got to get us to the demo, and then after the demo, we're going to um, get you more money. So the tasks will I'll create new tasks and ask you to do new things to the page, and then give you more money. Okay. All right. So just remember that when you're bidding, because creating a bunch of fields on a form and creating a list shouldn't be that complicated. Um, and but there are harder pages. I do realize that, but just realize that you're going to get more money for these forms. All right, so you wouldn't program these. You're not going to put the actual text there, but this is going to be a drop down. This is going to be auto generated, so you'll call an API for to auto-generate the reference number. The client name, this particular one, it's going to be an autocomplete. So in where that's not there, I want to go back to the program. If I were to go to here to autocomplete, this one I seem to like a little bit, so if I typed in something, it will pick up the value. So I'll need you to do the autocompletes and pass in whatever you're trying to search for to the API, and then I'll hand you back a list that you can then show to the user. This is material design, so we'll need to go ahead and apply those. Okay, so in the client, shipper, and consignee, you'll see that throughout the application. A client, shipper, and consignee are all contacts. Here, this would be an entry box, so those would be just whatever you type in, and you can put in multiples. They'll actually put in, a few numbers and put a comma and a few more numbers, comma and whatever. So it's going to be some maybe 100 characters where they're going to allow, but you don't have to show it to be 100 characters. They know they'll type in some things. Okay. A status is a drop down, so I'll give you the status. Now, if someone wants to program the little utilities, for example, the status drop down, the priority drop down, you can put those into the global memory space, and I'll give you a task for that. But I do need you to come to me and say, hey, I can do this. Just provide me a ticket, and this is how much money it's going to cost a task, and we'll go from there. Location of file, it's going to be an entry box right now, and then handed file too. So this is going to be an office worker. So they have about 10 or so workers in the office, and those workers are going to be listed in an employee login table that I'll give you another API for. We talked about these buttons already. Okay, so this was probably the easiest form. When we get to other forms, it gets to be more complicated. Okay, like this. I wanted to talk about this contact log, same as file control. So I'm going to provide another video or so of the original program that I was demoing, trying to get them used to the idea. Um, and it's basically a contact log when we sent an email, when we made a phone call, things like that, so that they would know. And that they put a big box there so that we would put that same stuff there every single time. So it would be something that we could make a component in Angular, and it would be used practically, it looks like, on every form. So we'll need someone to create the component, and it's a component that's going to be reused. So someone needs to think about that and say, I want to do that contact log, or perhaps the guy who actually does the file control could make the um, component for that. But just let me know. I'll create a separate task, and then you can bid for that. Okay. This one here, view pictures from connected WRs. A WR is a warehouse receipt. So when they're on the warehouse and they do receive in either one box or a truck, they take pictures of everything. And then when they take those pictures, they provide them um, through a means. They'll actually save them. They will be uploaded automatically, and then they will appear here. Okay, we'll have all the pictures, we'll have all of the scanned documents, we'll have everything will appear here, and they'll most likely be in file folders or stuff. I know that this particular screen is a virtual file folder, but we'll need to be able to click on these things and then show the contents of those. That will be driven by what's in the database table. I know that, but I just need you to know that also. Okay, going back to the document. Okay, so we do need to make these components. Now these buttons, I know there's a lot of them, and like for example, this one here, this loading guide 8, what I think it means is that we're actually going to go to that page, but I wouldn't know until we know. This particular button here, confirm arrival, it's kind of like, if you think about a shipper, when maybe like FedEx or something, um, you know that you get a message from FedEx when your package has arrived. You might ask for a message on your phone. That's what this is. They want to confirm that the item arrived. So when they get that confirmation, they click on it, sets a status. Same thing when they confirm departure. Click a button, set a status. Now, this one here is just regular save. Okay, they're going to save this. It's a save button. Okay, so we go from there. So just so you know, AWB stands for Airway Bill. Airway Bill. And the HAWB, from what they told me, is that's a house. It belongs to the company, whereas an airway bill belongs to a customer. And then when it's kind of like if you think you go to the bar and he says it's on the house, right? Well, that's what the house means. It's the house or the freight forwarder. He's going to consolidate several shipments together so he has one airplane going out or one truck going out or one container going out, whereas he would not have to um, send all of them out separately. He'll hold them back, consolidate them, and we'll go from there. And so printing, we're going to get into printing. Just so you know, you don't have to bid this entire page. The printing is going to be on a separate set of printing. So if anybody has any a desire to want to use the printing, I use Telerik reporting. We use a SQL Server database. It's pretty easy to do what I'm going to ask you to do, but there's going to be probably a lot of reports, and especially when we have to print the customs form and things like that, it's going to be, like I said, it's plenty of work. Okay. Uh, File AES. I don't know what AES is, so I'm not going to ask you to know. All these fields or things that I'm trying to tell you to do is like number of pieces. That's going to be a number, or integer number. But for gross weight, I'm going to assume when I say decimal, it's going to be a decimal. It's a number with 2 decimals, like a money field without the currency symbol. When I say it's a money field, we need to go ahead and show the currency symbol. Okay, date pop-up, I talked about that before. It's going to be date pop-up. And if we were to go back and show you in this example, over here, you can see that there's a little date pop-up. Okay, so whenever we have a date pop-up there, and then the autocomplete, this autocomplete we talked about has to be redone because I didn't do it well. Okay, So back to here, and I told you H means it's a house account. Good. All right. Um, Another grid. Now this is going to be entries. This looks to be like a grid that's going to be entered, and it's going to self-expand. So you have to think about that. It's going to expand as you enter in new rows. Maybe you put a little plus button here to add a new row. That's totally fine. This is going to be a footer. So you need to bring the row up and make it a footer and put a little nice design on it. Okay. And he only ordered these numbers just so that he would not go crazy. Okay. So we do not need to put those numbers there. If we do later at a later time, I will let you know. Okay. And I just didn't get to all these pages yet. Okay. But I have a lot of programming to do this weekend, and I wanted to get something to show you. Same concept here. Okay. We don't really need to know the business. We just have to display a list and um, allow them to enter in a bunch of fields, enter in these other fields, and when they mash down the save button, we're going to save it. Okay. Now, it looks like they, even though we're on a sub house airway bill, they may want to save it as a house airway bill or save it as an airway bill. I don't know yet, so let's just keep that in mind. Okay. Same concept here. This is the consolidation one that when we were on this page here, I talked about a air consolidation page. That's that. But this particular air consolidation page is not what we want. This is a copy of the contact page. I mean, it was an exact copy. So if I go to contacts and I go to um, air consolidation, it's the same data, same API. What I want to do is I want to utilize these forms like we talked about in the last video. Okay, and so your job is to pull this off. I'm going to give you the data. I'm going to give you the means to save and retrieve the data, um, and you just need to do your end. Okay, house consolidation, same concept. You know, put in some fields. Now, when it comes to you saving this data, it's going to be in a, you're going to send me the JSON. I'm going to have a class. If you know the web APIs, it's basically going to be an object. You're going to fill in the object and you're going to pass it to me. And then, um, uh, and I'm sure that I showed you this other screen over here, the Swagger. So yeah, must have because it has the values. I had this one open here. So you're going to be able to see if you're doing a put, you can put in an example here, put in some items that I'm going to clean up some of this data for you, and then you can put in the values. This was for a contact, okay? But if I were to, um, there's some of this stuff I don't even have some of this stuff created. That I still need to do that. So never fear, that's coming, okay? I'm going to do as much as I can this weekend and then give some work to you guys, and you'll see this thing grow. What we will do also is that we will save our work into the Git repository when you know that it's working. I will then publish it on a every morning basis. I know that we're all in different time zones, so I mean all different parts of the world. So if when I do have it updated, I will email everybody through the site that um, the site is published, so that when you can get to it and you can take a look at your work, I do expect you that once it is published, I need you to go back and make sure that it works on the test site because um, when everybody who's merging all their code, there may be a chance that we have a merge conflict and something doesn't work. Okay, so do keep that in mind. And spreadsheet, and then the last one is the loading guide. There is going to be plenty of work. Like I said, we are going to need to be able to, well, I have a device here. I've got an iPad with a scanner attached to it, and they're going to want to scan the labels. There's another project that I need to be able to print the labels, but I've got this big, massive printer sitting at my desk. So, like I said, there's so much work. Now, if the guy continues to pay like he is, then we should have no problems. We'll keep busy for quite a long time. Um, and from that, I think I'll let you go for now. But what I want you guys to think about is if there's some sections of the pages that can be made into components, please do that. These grids are great examples of components. Okay, don't need to be. And then we had talked about that those components you'll save them as components, but then they would be on these little sections out here, or you might make a big section up here. I just would like a somewhat uniform design when we can see the first couple of pages done, then we want to start following that same design. So I'm not saying that every page has to be like this. You may have a big white card at the top with the grid that is a component. And then you might have smaller boxes over here. So you might have a big white box at the top, two more cards over here for other statuses, and you can save those and everything. But I just need you to use some of your creativity. Don't wait for me to design everything. Okay. We talked about that you would need to have some kind of add button, maybe from the contact page, so that you can add things. And then we talked about some of these buttons that are going to go here. Um, okay, so hopefully that helps. If you have any questions, please send me an email. I have you on uh, my saved list, and I can give you an email. What I would like to do is to create a group email so that when we communicate, that we communicate with the entire group. Um, if it's not specific about, your pay or whatever like that, or a bid. But when we say something like, hey, we need to, or when I say something like, hey, I need everybody to go ahead and test their work, I need you, I just need to send out one email so that everybody gets it. So I will need all of your emails, and I'll mention that in a chat to you on the Upwork site. Okay. All right. Very good. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.